What is a pry knife? I only heard of a pry knife fairly recently, and I'm not sure I rightly know what a pry knife is, but yeah, the name seems fairly self-explanatory. So I thought I might have a look at some things that I would call a pry knife. Here's an opinel. Quite the steep edge bevel on that one, as you can see. It's an oyster shucker that one could find plenty of uses for in a knifey kind of context, not requiring an edge. You might not want to rack your edge. You might just want to pry. And then here's one I made, as it were. Well, I made it out of a fork, carving fork, dinner set. The knife that presumably accompanied it was no longer available. Just this guy in a bucket at the thrift store. And it was kind of sad and rusty and crusty, and I thought I could justify cutting the fork part off and turning it into a knife. If you ping the fork, it sounds pretty good. I got it lying around somewhere, so you can tell thereby that it's a hard steel. It's not very hard, but if it's a little soft, it's good, because I use it for things like this, where this white part of this wood here was just flaking off when I was whittling it. It was totally punky. So I saturated the whole thing with super glue. And I think I put some sawdust in there. Anyway, messy job. So I'm thinking, well, I'll fill it with epoxy. And I was just using this to clean out the super glue, which of course is horribly brittle stuff that will probably mess your point up on just about any knife, including this one. But it's easy to raise a point, and I can keep removing the handle. I've done this various times. I've removed a piece of handle and kept sharpening it, experimenting with different things. I had it a double edge on it at one point. I ground that off again. Eventually I'll remove this copper rivet, and you can imagine this could be your handle up to here, and then you've still got this much blade with a taper tang. End up with a tidy little whittler. Could be something completely different, but for now I use it. Maybe not every day, but I get use out of it. And then recently I picked up this thing. Now this is, I guess, really what they call a pry knife. Also, a little honorable mention for the Gerber. You guys know this one, right? But it's the one that opens with one hand. And the chunky nose pliers. But yeah, probably the star of the show here. I did a regrind. It had serrations down here. It was not sharp. The serrations especially were not sharp. And I don't know, I've had it for a while doing nothing, because I bought it. I thought it maybe would be useful, and when I got it, I'm like, well, what am I going to use this for? But having actually ground it, it's in a sense, it's got a little bit of parity with my knife, in terms of the choppiness, the recurve, that tooth there. But I mean, this thing is just whatever, you probably could chop through a car door with this. Not that I'm likely to need to do that at any time soon, but yeah, I will experiment, and you know, it whittles. It'll whittle for you. And you know, when in okay, I got to show you this other knife now. I remember. Try and keep this below 10 minutes then, but ooh, very special knife to me. My father came from southern Jutland in Denmark, right on the border with Germany. He actually was 10 years old during the Nazi occupation, and had a bit of a chip on his shoulder about Germans, although he spoke fluent German. Never wanted a German car or a Japanese car. He always drove a Saab, and sometimes I borrowed it. Back to the point. We visited a Viking museum together with his new wife. He remarried, and we went to this Viking museum where they have a ship that they pulled out of the water, and kind of you got the skeleton of the ship there. And in the gift shop, they had some blades and also a hatchet head made by a local smith. That's his maker's mark, but I can't read runes, but I guess he could be traced. And so it was just the blade. So this would be the first knife that I rehandled. I was just scraping on it today. I got it out. It was very blunt. And the handle, I don't know about the blade angle to the handle. It's a bit strange. Seems like it's got a bit of a back sweep, but it is very comfortable. I don't think I did a bad job, except I used some weird epoxy that doesn't look very nice. So it's basically flat, 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 and very slightly convexed. Well, maybe it's flat, flat, and convex and a half. And very thick spine. And the reason why I was just reminded of this is because whittling with this thing here, it's a very different experience when you can just lay something flat and go. You're still only cutting with a very tiny bit of... Oh dear, here we go. Now my... That's very rinky-dink here. I'm just propping this back up. There we go. Yeah, you just lay this flat, and okay, so it's an edge bevel that must be the same as, you know, to look at as an edge bevel on a thinner knife. But the way it behaves, it's not it's not a deep cut, obviously. But it gives you this smoothness and this control. You know, see, I could just take off dust with it. It doesn't dig in. Right? So I don't know whether this is a reproduction of what those guys were using to EDC back in the day, but that would be my guess. And I love it. And now I have the skills to maybe maintain this handle, but do something better up here and down there. The handle came off a wok. So it had the hole already. C'est tout. Bonsoir.